began with, can Iran send missiles to Kenya, a country whose people have at times overpowered police during protests by just using rocks? And while it was established that Iran is quite a distance from Kenya, the new worry is, will the Kenyan government sell out its people to the most threatening in the world? Kenya's stance on the growing Middle East war is slowly becoming evident, with the latest diplomatic development involving President William Ruto and the superpower nations. France President Emmanuel Macron has yet again invited President Ruto to the G7 summit set for this June, and it is already unlikely he will decline. Canada, Germany, Italy, Japan, the UK and the US are the member states of the G7 and have so far publicly backed Israel as tension rose in the Middle East war pitting Iran and the US. President William Ruto is viewed as carrying the African voice, and if he attends, he will be expected to chime in into the growing calls of de-escalation, ceasefire, and the US-Iran-led negotiations. Already, the US has praised President Ruto for his public condemnation of Iranian attacks on neighboring countries in the Middle East. The praises were made in a phone call between US Secretary of State Marco Rubio and Ruto. Ruto had earlier denounced the strikes targeting Gulf states, warning that the widening conflict in the region threatens to sabotage international peace and security. Ruto singled out attacks on the UAE, Qatar, Saudi Arabia, Iraq, Oman, Kuwait, Jordan, and Bahrain by Iran. France is expected to host the first of the two foreign ministers meeting, where top of the agenda will be detailed discussions on the diplomatic efforts related to the war in Iran. This is not the first time Ruto has been invited for the G7 summit. In 2024, Ruto joined other world leaders in Italy to participate in the G7 summit, where the Ukraine Peace Summit centered the week-long event. While diplomatic experts have maintained that Ruto needs to take a central ground in the Middle East war, it is feared that the intentions continue to cut supplies in the country and threaten stability of the prices of major commodities. The conflict is feared to drive up fuel prices, stalling key exports like tea and flowers, and threatening to cause fuel shortages.
Our sales have reduced between 8 to 10%, which we used to supply to Russia and the neighboring countries of Russia, where now we are not able to supply the full volume which they used to buy. With that, we had to discard some flowers. We have to throw some flowers due to that slow sales in Russia.
As the Strait of Hormuz is a vital trade route, the disruptions have caused concern for the supply chains.
Currently, we are now doing around 10,000. We have lost around 30,000 stems orders. The sales have dropped with 30,000 stems per week.
With the opposition and analysts pointing to potential economic challenges in the country, over 60% of tea exports.
Now we have to look at the diversification of the market, because the five top countries that import the teas from Kenya all sway to 75% of the market share. Russia included in the 75% component.
And crucial transport routes are affected, with exporters losing millions of shillings as logistics cost rises, fuel inflation.
Conflict.
The Iranians are obviously trying to target energy-related, oil-related infrastructure to cause price spikes in a year of the US midterms. It's the only weapon they really have to make the US stop. So any sort of valve that allows oil to leave the Persian Gulf and to avoid the Strait of Hormuz is potentially, under threat.
The G7 foreign ministers strongly condemned Iran's unjustifiable attacks against civilians and energy infrastructure. They have vowed to take action to protect maritime shipping lanes, particularly the Strait of Hormuz, and reiterated support for regional partners in the face of Iranian strikes, while also grappling with the differing levels of appetite for wider military action and higher cost of living. According to the latest data from the Diaspora Principal Secretary Roslyn Jogu, over 400,000 Kenyans are living and working in the Gulf.
The plane was full, but they gave us space for all the children. We are home, safe, and sound. It was scary. Every day you get alerts, and the children will just lose it. And are we going to die? Because we are not used to that. So it was a very, very traumatizing experience.
The head of state has cautioned that the conflict in the region threatens to sabotage international peace and security. This as we are still keeping an eye to see whether President William Ruto will shelve the G7 summit this year, as his attendance could potentially draw parallels with Kenyan bilateral and multilateral relationships with Iran and other nations backing Iran.
Now you can just look happy.
For the benefit of their countries, their peoples, and including our continent of Africa. Thank you very much.
Your Excellency, President Trump, fellow heads of state, today's signing of the Washington Peace Accord for Eastern DRC is not merely a monumental diplomatic milestone. It is a decisive act to end a devastating conflict that has scarred the region for decades. Mr. President, what you have achieved is not only transformative, it is consequential and historic. This conflict has destroyed livelihoods, destabilized our region, and threatened the future of the entire Great Lakes African continent. Today's achievement culminates a relentless regional effort anchored by the foundational work of the East African Community and SADC, and today, this Washington process. The coordinated Nairobi, Luanda, and Washington process has created the essential pathway that brings us to this pivotal moment. We would like to extend our gratitude to President Tshisekedi and President Kagame for their leadership during this process. Reaching this point was made possible by the unparalleled consequential convening power of the United States and President Trump's resolute and focused commitment to global peace. Your clarity, Mr. President, of purpose and ability to rally stakeholders together has brought us to this point. We therefore extend our profound gratitude to President Trump, whose bold leadership has been instrumental in delivering this breakthrough. Our presence here, Mr. President, as regional leaders, is a testament of our collective resolve. We will spare no effort to ensure this agreement is fully realized, mobilizing every resource and partner to secure peace and unlock the region's immense economic promise. The protracted conflict on our continent continues to hold back Africa. Our current 3% share of global trade is stark evidence of how far this war has held us back. A peaceful Eastern DRC can unlock one of Africa's greatest economic opportunities. Our vast resources, the young talent that we have, connected through our regional infrastructure and the Africa Continental Free Trade Area, can ignite an unprecedented transformation. A peaceful and integrated Great Lakes region will accelerate innovation, predictable government reduces risk, harmonized regulation lowers costs, and open borders increase trade, attracting value-added industries to our continent. For too long, Africa has exported raw materials only to import refined products at great cost. Our regional economic integration framework, Mr. President, that you have spoken to here, will build value chains in minerals, manufacturing, and agri-processing, creating jobs and creating wealth. The Great Lakes region stands at the threshold of a new era. Peace will open doors, integration will guide us, and private sector dynamism will propel us forward. In conclusion, as we celebrate progress in the DRC, we must not look away from other crises. I want to ask you respectfully, Mr. President, that in your quest for global peace, to support efforts to resolve the humanitarian catastrophe in Sudan. I thank you.
Excellency.